sun's fierce light, a figure stands tall in the dead of night. Shadows crawl, but he doesn't sway, a sentinel guarding the break of day. Words like fire burn through the air, a defender of dreams and the world's despair. Facing storms with an unyielding grin, the fight for truth always starts within. Stand tall, golden hair in the wind. The tides may rise, but we won't give in. Through the chaos, a beacon so bright, leading us all to the edge of the fight. The world quakes as the battle ignites. Through the smoke, he's a vision of might. Foes gather aiming from every side, but he moves with purpose and endless pride. Try to break him with venom and lies, but he soared like an eagle, piercing the skies. A symbol of hope when the night is long, a melody rising, a defiant song. Stand tall, golden hair in the wind. The tides may rise, but we won't give in. Through the chaos, a beacon so bright, leading us all to the edge of the
Stupid people should wear signs, neon bright, so we can find a way to dodge their tangled mess, avoid their chaos more, say less. Wear a sign, wear a sign. Save me from your twisted line. Wear a sign, wear a sign. Nada, nada, don't waste your time. Politicians dance and spin, blatant lies with a practiced grin. Blame the moon, blame the stars, blame the traffic or faulty cars. You think they're 6, not 35, playing games to stay alive. Wear a sign, wear a sign. Save me from your twisted line. Wear a sign, wear a sign. Nada, nada, don't waste your time. Celebrities with tails so tall, lost my yacht, it's so small. It's hard being rich, don't you see? You're living in your fantasy.
Marvin Divine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Thursday, October 9th, 2025. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. This is the Colonel sitting in central Pennsylvania with a live broadcast from my studio once again, bringing you your daily dose, your daily injection, the daily jab of anti-propaganda, anti-bullshit, anti-cock-prodding, all the truth. You guys decide for yourself. You don't have to trust me. You don't have to trust my sources. Judge for yourself. And frankly, I don't care. No, seriously, I do care. No, I just want to make an announcement here. I've received several more things about people listening to wackadoodles, lunatics, charlatans, outright liars, slanderers, and just nonsensical people in Afrikaans, in English, in South Africa, in America, who are misleading those into the refugee program. I will say the following. February 7th, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. 7 full months after President Trump announced the refugee program, if you listen to those people and you're defrauded of your money, if you listen to those people and you get bad advice, if you listen to those people on your tiny Facebook sites and your WhatsApp groups, my empathy for you is zero. I've had enough. Enough of the slanderers, the liars, the charlatans, the frauds, the bogus bullshitters who lie about America, who lie about the program, who pretend to say what they know is true, falsely claiming in videos that they have a list of people of this, that, and the other. Stop. If after 7 months you haven't found this channel and found that my analysis has been consistently correct and has actually been out in front of the U.S. government on virtually everything and every question that a refugee or potential refugee has asked, well, then that's your fault. That's your problem. Obviously, this isn't directed towards the people watching the program right now, but we all know that people steal my content, which is copyrighted, and don't request my permission and use it for TikToks and use it to make themselves famous on their pathetic little YouTube channels and their pathetic little corner hustling X accounts with their demented little crap weasels. So that's who this is directed towards. If you can't take the time to listen to the stuff that's shared here, then that's your fault. And if you don't make it to America because you lied, because someone encouraged you to lie, or you don't make it to America because you deceived the U.S. government, or you come here and you get your refugee status rescinded, sent back, that's your fault. That is your problem. That is your issue, not mine. I'm an American-born citizen. My ancestors arrived on this continent in the year 1621 and built the greatest nation and the greatest democracy in the history of humankind. That's my patrimony. I'm proud of it. Lots of mistakes made along the way. Humans make mistakes. We're not perfect. If we were perfect, we would be gods. We're not gods. But this is the greatest country on God's green earth ever created by humans. And I will defend it to the death. And I've put my life on the line many times for it. And I won't tolerate people who act like fools and lie about my country. There you have it. That's my opening statement. There you go. Well, it's not just stupidity, it's just rudeness. People have envy. They have envy. You know, last night when someone asked me, we're talking about something about, someone said something and they're questioning, and someone said, wow, Colonel, that's a lot of stuff. I was very quiet and circumspect about my experiences, the things I've done, the accomplishments, even the failures. I didn't say much about it. I said, I'm kind of modest about it. And then I went and read 2 different jobs from my CV. And I don't read my CV very often. I don't apply for jobs very often. I read it and I was like, wow, I did all that? Yeah. So screw these clowns. Yeah, it's time for the Bugger Off Bob song. Right, folks. My name is Nobody. Nobody's perfect. Thank you, Annalie. Appreciate that. So that's my opening statement for today because I've had to forward stuff to U.S. government that people are doing things misleading people in the refugee program. And it's time for someone to take action against these people. They, if they're not committing crimes, they're committing fraud. And that is a crime in and of itself. So I would encourage U.S. authorities to start knocking on doors of the people in America who are committing fraud related to the refugee program, misleading people. It's time to do that. It's time to do that. And in South Africa, no one's going to do anything to protect you because you're a minority and they don't care if you're defrauded. So you have to use good judgment and not listen to these people. All right? Cool beans. How are we doing? 311 people currently here. Let's get started with the news. Israelis and Palestinians are jubilant that the war is ending. Another war ended by Donald Trump and his action. Yes, other people were involved, but it wouldn't have happened without Donald Trump's impetus and Donald Trump's emphasis and focus on Gaza. A war precipitated by the weak, callow, which is weak, so that's redundant, the callow regime of the kleptocrat-in-chief, the demented, crooked, stair-falling Joseph Robinette scumbag Biden. He facilitated this war, the war in Ukraine. He is the man who made it all possible. The collapse in Afghanistan is what led to all of this. And the war that took place there was a green light for Hamas terrorists to murder 1,200 innocent people, including 250 soldiers, and the rest were civilians, in a terror attack invading Israel on October 7th of 2023. Now, after 2 years, we have peace coming.
Stupid people.
Well, wear a sign. That was not supposed to come up. Sometimes you hit the wrong button. I have to fire my producer. Wait a second. I am my producer. You're fired. Damn it. Anyway, so much for that. That was funny. At least for me. I don't know if you found it entertaining, but we made a boo-boo. Here at Chris Wyatt Africa, we made a boo-boo. Jubilation. The ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas would, if successfully carried out, halt fighting in Gaza to release the remaining hostages in exchange for Israel's release of Palestinian terrorists. The announcement prompted celebrations and cautious sense of optimism among Israelis and Palestinians. Many of the details of the deal remain unclear, including when Israel is supposed to halt the fighting. The thornier issue within the wider U.S.-backed plan to permanently end war, such as disarmament of the terrorists and a full withdrawal of Israeli troops, are not in the first phase. But the bottom line is the shooting has stopped. Sometimes an armistice or a ceasefire is sufficient. Israel and Hamas signed the Gaza ceasefire hostage deal. Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas, Reuters, they're the terrorist group, internationally recognized designated terrorist group, not militant group, signed an agreement today to ceasefire and free Israeli hostage exchange for Palestinian terrorists. Israeli and Palestinians alike were rejoiced when the deal was announced, the biggest step yet to end 2 years of war with at least 67,000 Palestinians have died, courtesy of the terror state starting a war. Israel's cabinet due to discuss the plan that would bring a ceasefire and hostage release. Once they approve it, we'll move forward. So it's not over yet, folks, but we're close. We're close. Closer than we've ever been. Biden made no attempt to end this conflict. He made no attempt to end the Ukraine conflict. Biden only fueled the Ukraine conflict by sending weapons to the kleptocratic state of that little scumbag, Volodymyr Zelensky. He never tried to end the war, never had legitimate negotiations to do anything. He simply fueled a war to distract from his government, spying on Americans, imprisoning Americans illegitimately, and fleecing our treasury. That's what they did. Well, cartels decide who the top cops are, according to Mkwanazi. Boy, his allegations get more and more startling. Cartels decide police leadership. So I'm sorry, it's not Mkwanazi, it's Masemola. Wow. In explosive testimony, General Fani Masemola told the Parliament's ad hoc committee that his tenure as National Police Commissioner was decided by cartels. This despite being appointed by President Ramaphosa. So my question is, Fani Masemola, you're the police commissioner, and cartels decide who the top cops are? What, by circumventing you? Was your decision negated? Was the president complicit? What is going on in the gangster land of South Africa? It's a gangster's paradise. Testifying before the committee today, Masemola said there are always plans being devised to remove national commissioners. There will be criminal cartels that will go into a little corner, connive, and come up with a case that you can be removed. Actually, from day one, when you get appointed, there are those who work day and night to see how they can remove you. Masemola added that he would like to finish his term, which is determined by other key stakeholders, who in this case are criminals. Masemola emphasized the state of policing was quite challenging. Policing today can never be described as the policing 30 years ago. It's quite challenging and requires new ways. Masemola was appointed as the National Police Commissioner of SAPS in March of 2022 by Ramaphosa. He succeeded General Sitole in the role. Meanwhile, KZN Police Commissioner General Lieutenant General Nande Kwanaze has also appeared before the committee, raised concerns about rogue elements. So the police commissioner is saying that, well, in effect, he's saying that criminal syndicates select the senior leaders, but they don't. They are the ones who are honest by coming up with fake cases against them. That's the bottom line. The domestic terrorist on Fort Hare, called students by corrupt publications, have threatened more protest and more damage after the campus evacuation. University of Fort Hare students have threatened to regroup and continue their domestic terrorism when they return to campus. This after they were told to vacate the campus by close of business today due to the violent protests which started on Monday and led to the torching of several buildings at the main campus. A building was also torched at the university's East London campus. The institution said the damage was estimated between 200 million and 500 million rand. They should all be expelled from Fort Hare University, investigated, criminally charged, and processed as domestic terrorists. They are seeking to use violence to get change. That is terrorism. Simple as that. In a letter to the university community on Wednesday, Buhulungu said the management representatives had decided to order the students to vacate the premises by the close of business today. This is a consequence of South Africa's ANC governance. Administrative block in the University of Fort Hare. This is what you get under ANC leadership. There was a time in the 1980s when the racists said that blacks couldn't govern themselves. Unfortunately, actions like this lend credence to that statement. Doesn't make it true, but it supports their argument. 8 have been arrested, but none were charged with arson. 8 suspects appeared in court after a violent protest erupted at the University of Fort Hare in Alice. Police continue to monitor the tense campus following arson. They appeared at the Alice Magistrates Court and are expected to return on November 26th. The protest began in the early hours of Monday and quickly escalated into domestic terrorism. Police responded with rubber bullets to disperse the crowd, and no arrests were made in connection with the arson or malicious damage to property. SAPS will ensure the case is open or thoroughly investigated and appeal to anyone with information on burning the buildings to come forward and report to Alice Police Station, or alternatively call SAPS Crime Stop number at 08 600 10111, 08 600 10111 to report the domestic terrorists and Fort Hare campus. I suggest that Fort Hare be closed permanently. That'll teach them. Well, South Africa's at risk of not coming off the gray listing. Yes. Financial Action Task Force is aware of the allegations in policing in South Africa, and this could jeopardize the withdrawal of the state that allows terror financing and its shores to be used as a hub for cartels and criminal activity and money laundering. South Africa expected to remove from the Financial Action Task Force gray list later this month, but new corruption revelations could derail that progress. According to Stanlib Chief Economist Kevin Lings, it's a distinct possibility. We were put on the gray list in February 2023, so we've been on it for 2.5 years. Since then, South Africa's been working systemically to fix the 22 issues that they highlighted. 22 issues. Ladies and gentlemen, South Africa wasn't removed from the list of good countries and put on the bad boy list because they made one transgression. 22 failures over the course of decades. And after decades of equivocating and funneling and drat-sitting and refusing to do what was right, the Financial Action Task Force finally sanctioned South Africa 2.5 years ago and put them on a gray list. So let's run through the hits, the African National Congress. Okay? We ready? Gray listed, Financial Action Task Force. Junk bond status. 1,000 jobs a day lost in South Africa for 17 years. 1,000 jobs a day for 17 years. That's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. The world's largest HIV-positive population, 8.5 million people. Cholera in the streets of Hammanskraal. Malaria resurgence in KZN. Children starving to death because officials in Nelson Mandela Bay are too incompetent to spend the money to feed infants and toddlers. Criminal syndicates running the taxi industry, assassinating people in broad daylight. Criminal syndicates running the construction industry, driving up the cost of construction. 145 racist laws. 45% unemployment. 85% youth unemployment. The dumbing down of the education system with a 30% passing standard to go to university. 26,000 murders a year. Far more than the United States, which is 8 times the size of South Africa. This is the legacy of the South African National Congress. That's the abbreviated list with a modest bit of embellishment. America is not 8 times as large as South Africa. 6 into 33. Yeah. Almost 8 times. What a legacy. But rest assured, folks, it's all going to be safe. The Democratic Alliance is on the scene again. Their minister of fisheries has a plan to create 600,000 jobs within 10 years. Folks, that's 60,000 jobs a year. I don't know how he's going to pull that off, but he has a plan. Now, we had a previous plan under the Zuma regime that amounted to nothing, and this plan will amount to nothing. South Africa cannot harness its blue economy when it has the world's worst performing ports. South Africa cannot take advantage of ships transiting around the Cape of Good Hope when its ports suck, when its ports are dilapidated, when its ports are unresponsive, when its ports are run by criminal syndicates. Of the major countries in the world with international seaports, 78 countries, the organization that ranks countries based on efficacy and usefulness, South Africa isn't number 1, it isn't number 10, it isn't number 20, it isn't number 40. South Africa ranks 78th out of 78 countries assessed. 78th. South Africa's ports are a disaster. And to pretend that South Africa over the course of the next decade is going to profit from the blue water economy is simply ludicrous. South Africa's blue gold could yield 166 billion rand and 600,000 jobs by 2035, says Dion George. Somebody please, if you're in the Democratic Alliance, I'm asking for an intervention. Please, go to the office of the minister, Dion George. Inquire about his mental health, his state. Make sure he's okay. Perhaps give him your analysis because he's smoking his socks. Does he actually believe this nonsense? Another plan that will never be implemented. I've seen these plans over and over again everywhere in South Africa, across Africa, at the African Union. Nothing ever gets done. Big plans, big conferences. People stay in hotels and have luxury and have big food and sleep with prostitutes and enjoy themselves. And then nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens. Minister Dion George says South Africa's ocean economy could contribute about 166 billion to the GDP and support roughly 608,000 jobs by 2035. 166 billion rand. So, ladies and gentlemen, based on that, Minister George is saying that next year 16 billion, the next year 16 billion, the next year 16 billion added to the economy and 60,000 jobs per year. Who believes that? Bowman's Hobbies, thank you for subscribing. Who believes that? Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, Dr. Dion George, said on Thursday that South Africa's ocean economy could contribute a whole lot of money that will never come. Our oceans are a natural treasure. Sorry, Dr. George, they're not your oceans. The shoreline is yours. The territorial waters are yours. Maybe your exclusive economic zone might be yours, but the oceans don't belong to you. They're international. So, sorry, they're not your oceans. You don't own the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. They belong to the world. If we use them wisely, they will feed families, power industries, and provide work for generations. If we waste them, we waste our future. On that point, I can agree. Dr. Dion George is correct. He is correct. But he's smoking his socks. Despite the overwhelming maritime nature of South Africa's geography, its clear dependence on the ocean and the contribution of the maritime sector to the overall national economy has not fully explored the enormous potential of its ocean space. The sector, in other words, requires continuous interventions to maximize potential. Of course, those interventions are stopped by blue-haired Tawnies and racist, idiot, leftist, white liberals who protest on the beach. No, Shell can't do seismic testing. No seismic testing. No seismic testing. So how are you going to exploit the bounties of the ocean when idiot, leftist, privileged, rich, with maids and servants, white liberals and their colored friends hang out on the beaches of the south coast of South Africa and are successful in stopping development and progress and exploitation of the ocean's bounty? Operation Pakisa Oceans Economy Initiative, launched by then-President Jacob Zuma in 2014, was expected to contribute 129 billion rand to the South African economy and 800,000, 1 million new jobs. Let's see. Let's do the tally. No money, no jobs. So this is just smoke on the water. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a shocking report. And I had to read it twice to make sure I didn't misunderstand it. Let's do the math, okay? Let's do the math. I didn't do it because I want to do it with you. So we're talking 365,000 jobs per year. Oops, that's not wrong. 365 times 17 years. That's going to be a lot. That's 6,205,000 jobs. South Africa is shedding jobs at a rate of 1,000 per day and has been doing so for 17 straight years, according to this report in Business Tech. This is shocking. South Africa is facing one of the world's most persistent unemployment crises, and the country has lost thousands of jobs every day for 17 years. According to the Center for Development Enterprise, it said this is the result of years of government inaction, policy paralysis, resistance to reform, and racism. More than 12 million South Africans want to work but cannot find a job. For 17 years, 1,000 people have joined the unemployment queue every day. Okay, well, that's not lost jobs. That's a big difference. That's not lost jobs. Okay, so that's embellishment. That's why I hadn't read that story. That's 12 million people that can't get jobs. That's 12 million jobs that haven't been added to the economy. That's correct. Yeah. Losing jobs is different. Losing jobs means companies have fired people or retrenched people and they've gone out of business and they're not hiring them anymore. That's losing jobs. Not creating jobs is very different. So this is a misleading story. In a new report, they argue that the government's reliance on short-term public employment programs will never solve the problem. Of course it won't. Growing the economy is the only solution to this problem. Only solution to this problem. Only solution. Well, the port of Gauteng, isn't Gauteng an inland province? Well, they want to give it port status. The port of Gauteng plan targets a major cut in N3 truck traffic. The proposed new 50 billion rand inland ports aim is to address critical inefficiencies in South Africa's logistics system. The proposed port of Gauteng hub aims to address critical inefficiencies, create 50,000 jobs, and fix the Durban-Gauteng freight corridor. Well, here's one way to do it. Build a new frickin' road that doesn't go through Van Riemen's Pass and get those trucks off the N3. Ban trucks from being on the N3. Build a new highway. Build a new highway. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. So the report that I was just referring to is this one here. South Africa's unemployment catastrophe, a call for urgent action. Since 2009, there's not been a single year in which the number of new jobs created exceed the number of people entering the labor market. True. True. So the ranks just keep growing. Inside the Special Investigating Unit's raid, 820 million raid on the Hangwani Maumela luxury Sandton mansion. Look at that. Lamborghini. The Special Investigating Unit has raided the luxury Sandton home of businessman Hangwani Maumela, seizing high-end vehicles and artwork as part of an 820 million asset recovery operation tied to wholesale looting at the Tembisa hospital. People died. The hospital was burned. I'm sorry, that's Charlotte McKexon, not Tembisa. People died. They went without care so that this scumbag could have Lamborghinis. Thursday morning operation unfolded at Malmela's upmarket Sandhurst residence, where law enforcement officials, locksmiths, and removal trucks entered under a special tribunal order. Among the items taken were Lamborghinis, designer furniture, and valuable works of art believed to have been purchased with proceeds of corrupt hospital contracts. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that property. Unbelievable. This is what the ANC brings you. This is what the racists said. They said blacks couldn't govern. They're wrong, but when people don't govern, which is what the ANC is doing, this is what happens. Wow. All tenders based on BE. This is because of BE. Because you don't hire the best company, you hire the company that has the black skin. And this is what you get. 820 million. It is blood money. People died because of this. Look at this. And of course, the people that sold them the Lamborghinis and sold them the mansion didn't care the source of funds. They never cared. They're complicit in this too. They're complicit selling these luxury vehicles to these scumbags, knowing full well they shouldn't have them. 820 million rand. 820 divided by 19. $43 million in stolen money. Teresa Mostart, thank you for your membership. Well, folks, Walmart's coming. I don't know why. South Africa's imploding. Not a very good move. But this, Walmart has a very bad history of investing overseas. They bought companies in Germany and got frozen out of the market and lost millions of dollars. They've tried in other places. They failed. The only places they really succeed are Canada, Mexico, the U.S. for the most part. Walmart is coming to South Africa. Well, they're already there. They own Massmart, but they own Game, but they're coming with their own brand. The world's largest brick-and-mortar retailer will open its first brand of stores in South Africa later this year with an aggressive pricing strategy. Founded in 1962 by Sam and Bud Walton in Arkansas. Yep. Today, it operates 10,750 stores and clubs in 19 countries and e-commerce websites, employs 2.1 million people. 2.1 million people. Walmart is one of the world's largest employers. Yep. And it's a pro-illegal alien organization. Yep. King Mzizulu summons leaders to smoke the peace pipe. King Mzizulu Kwazwelithini, son of Zwelithini, has summoned Zulu leaders to smoke the peace pipe at a gathering at the Mashabane Royal Palace, Pongola, in northern KZN. He wants to mend divisions and strengthen unity in the royal family and the kingdom under his leadership. And I could care less. I don't care. Well, South Africa will host the 4th International Conference on Public Health in Africa. That's amazing. Congratulations. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, in partnership with the government of South Africa, has announced the dates and details of the 4th International Conference on Public Health in Africa, set to take place from the 22nd to 25th of October, just days away, in the vibrant city of Durban. This year's conference will unfold under the ambitious theme, Moving Towards Self-Reliance to Achieve Universal Health Coverage and Health Security in Africa. And I think it's a perfect location to hold it. Dirt bin, a place where hypodermic needles and human feces wash up on the once pristine beaches of tourist destinations. Dirt bin, a city with rubbish lying all over the streets, rats running around. Dirt bin. I would also say that South Africa is a brilliant location for it. South Africa has lots of experience with cholera outbreaks, with the world's largest HIV population, with one of the world's largest tuberculosis populations. I think that's absolutely brilliant. South Africa knows all about fucked up healthcare. Why not hold this conference in South Africa? When you talk about medical failures and failures in public health, South Africa is a poster child for the failure of public health. I think it's a perfect place to hold this conference, to draw attention to the failures of the ANC in public health and how they've jeopardized the welfare of millions of South Africans and international tourists who visit South Africa. Yes, I think it's brilliant. Well, we got an outbreak of foot and mouth disease. Where's Johnny Boy Steenhuisen? Boy, that's gone quiet, hasn't it? The foot and mouth disease hasn't gone away, folks. It hasn't gone away. The ineptitude of the government of national unity in responding to that is terrible. Newest struggle song is Obity Obity. Life goes on. Thank you, John Spence, 35 Rand. Clouds are gathering. I think South Africa is a perfect place to hold a public health conference. If you're going to talk about the failures of public health in Africa, South Africa is the place to start. Yeah, well said. The family of the assassinated accountant Babitu Deokran is not on board with the concept of naming the disgusting and vile failed hospital after her. And I would have to say that she's right. their family. The family of slain whistleblower Babita Dekran has rejected calls to rename Tembisa Hospital after her, citing its current state of corruption and poor conditions. They believe the best way to honor her is by making the hospital free of corruption, improving staff conditions, and delivering quality care. Well, they're going to be sadly disappointed. That's never going to happen. We definitely do not want her name on it. Her family has become her voice, so I can confidently say that on behalf of Babita that she would not want that either. Should Tembisa ever be cleaned up in every way possible, we may reconsider. The hospital already has so much negative stigma attached to it. There's so many dishonest officials that are employed at the hospital. Agreed. Perhaps we can honor Babita Dekran in other ways. I've been saying since her murder to say her name. That's one way, that we never forget her and the sacrifice. And thankfully, the assassins at least waited until she dropped her daughter off at school and she came home alone. Ladies and gentlemen, South Africa's once prestigious system of universities run by the state, ranking in the top 200, has fallen on bad times because of racism, corruption, handing out grades, and capitulating to terrorists. Only one South African university makes it into the rankings of the top 200 universities worldwide. University of Cape Town has shot up the Times Higher Education Global University ranking, placing it as the only local institution among the top 200 in the world. You look at 18 performance indicators provide a comprehensive and balanced comparison between universities. UCT ranked 164th overall, maintaining its top position in South Africa and across Africa. The University of Johannesburg now ranks in the top 400, Pretoria in the top 600. Wow. The Durban University of Technology dropped out of the top 1,500. Meanwhile, Nelson Mandela Bay University joined the ranking, falling within the 1,201 to 1,500 range. Fort Hare dropped off the listing. Gee, I wonder why. Here are South Africa's universities and where they rank. Pathetic. Krugerrands, ladies and gentlemen, did you buy Krugerrands in 1994? 95? If you did, you were clever if you held on to them. Yeah, this story in the IOL. Gold surging to record highs, and South Africans who bought Krugerrands 30 years ago have seen extraordinary returns. Exactly 30 years ago, gold traded at $384.65 an ounce, with the rand then averaging 3 rand 63 to the dollar, not 19. 1 ounce Krugerrand cost roughly 1,397 rand at the time. Fast forward today, and the gold is trading at a record-breaking $4,035 an ounce, with the rand at 17.6 to the dollar. That puts the same coin's value at 69,253 rand, a 50-fold increase. If you take out inflation, it's still a lot of money. 9 October 1995. 9 October 2025. Look at that. 1,400 rand, 70,000 rand now. That's pure gold. Gold! Always believe in your soul. You've got the power to know you're indestructible. Always believe in gold. Spandau Ballet. Yeah. Well, the News 24 editors have taken to the scene again, and they're concerned about the threats from Mkhwanazi. Yes, this op-ed piece, and they clearly call it an editorial. Thank you for doing that. The KwaZulu-Natal police boss, Mkhwanazi, must decide if he wants to be a corruption buster or a tin pot dictator in a police uniform. In an extraordinary first for democratic South Africa, he asked Parliament to request the surveillance of journalists by the country's security sector and call for journalists who get it wrong to be jailed. Well, in that, we are in agreement. Silencing the press is not the solution to the corruption in the police. The solution to the corruption in the police is to imprison the corrupt officials and hold people to standards. So we agree. Cockprot24 and I agree for once. Thousands continue to flee Mozambique's violence, according to United Nations. More than 100,000 civilians have fled northern Mozambique this year alone. Insurgents linked to the Islamic State, but they're not Islamic State, are targeting civilians, causing severe distress, and forcing child recruitment and sex violence. More than 1.3 million people have been displaced since 2017. And I warned U.S. African Command in 2011 that this was coming. And I warned officials at the African Union in 2015 that this was coming. Nobody listened to Wyatt. Nobody listened. Since 2017, it's been unfolding. Yeah, well, it's because they don't care. He's a wise man. That's what they say about the ancient leader of Cameroon, who will continue to run for office. The world's oldest leader, tipped for his 8th term in Cameroonian vote. Cameroon's 92-year-old nonagenarian president Paul Biya, the world's oldest head of state, is set to seek an 8th term in office amid questions about the credibility of the election. Well, it's not credible. The Biya family is corrupt. A fractured opposition of 11 candidates is standing against the 92-year-old, whose credibility and fairness rights groups have called into question. Most of the 7.8 million Cameroonians called to the ballot box can remember no leader other than Biya who has held on to power with an iron fist since 1982. 1982. Nigeria foolishly has decided to triple the rate of capital gains taxes on foreign investors. Well, watch the capital flight. Nigeria is tripling capital gains tax for foreign equity investors, raising concerns that the move may trigger a sell-off. It will. Foreigners will face a 30% tax on the sale of Nigerian shares from January unless proceeds are reinvested in other listed domestic equities. The change is part of a new tax law, and it's going to chase away foreign direct investment. Well, South Africa, if you want to continue to destroy your economy, follow their lead. Stupid people should wear signs. Well, the Washington Post is trying to elicit tears, sadness. I have to cover up my tears, folks. Hang on. I need a moment. I need a moment, please. Like Jackie O, I need a moment. Jackie Onassis for you youngsters. I need another moment. You see, the evil Americans have stopped giving away money to people and are focusing on their own country. And, well, that's just wrong. People are not responsible for their own actions. People should not take care of their own problems. People should not be held to account for their issues. Only the Americans are responsible for taking care of the world. It's the task of Americans to provide health care to Rwandans, to provide business opportunities to South Africans, to provide antiretrovirals to Swazi. It's the Americans' responsibility to build infrastructure in Afghanistan, to ensure that women are protected in Tunisia. It's America's responsibility. So says the Washington Compost in a story about the cuts in aid under President Trump. It's so terrible. It's so mean. I can't. I'm sorry for, I can't do it. Sorry, I can't pretend to have empathy. That's the problem. I can't pretend. Well, here we go. U.S. aid cuts are being felt across Africa. Oh, say it ain't so, Joe. Here's how the abrupt withdrawal of U.S. aid has affected disease preparedness and responses in Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Somalia, and Tanzania. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's horrible. 8 months later, health officials are reporting a rise in deadly infections brought on by a shortage of drugs, test kits, and other medical supplies, including a new outbreak of Ebola virus. Oh, we're being blamed for Ebola. We're being blamed for Ebola. Oh, that orange man, bad man. Ladies and gentlemen, today in the Congo, an outbreak of Ebola. Consequence of bad man, evil, orange man bad. Donald Trump caused an Ebola outbreak in the Congo. He's evil, he's evil, he's evil. The impact of AIDS cuts in Africa is huge. But we were told that, no, it's not a big deal. Listen to South African officials. Well, the Americans only contribute 18% of the HIV spending in South Africa. Yeah, but who pays for 100% of their surveillance? We do. Who develops the antiretrovirals at billions and tens and billions of dollars of research? We do. Who gives them to you for cost? We do. The impact of aid cuts in Africa is huge, said Ngashi Ngongo of the African Center for Disease Control and Prevention, adding that the continent had lost more than $8 billion in funding since Trump dismantled USAID. On September 23rd, Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended his administration's actions during an interview on ABC's George Stephanopoulos, saying the programs are being restructured to be more efficient and that no one has died as a result of the cuts. Every country in Africa except Eritrea received foreign assistance from the United States. 54 countries. Ladies and gentlemen, 53 countries in Africa got foreign aid from America. Morocco is prospering. Egypt is a wealthy country. Algeria is blessed with natural resources and is a very wealthy country. Tunisia is a good middle-income country. South Africa has more resources than one can imagine. Yet 53 African countries received money out of my wallet. No wonder when I open my wallet, it's empty. There's no money. Because they've taken it in the 48% of my taxes and given it to countries that have their own resources. Wow. Trump's global funding has upended decades of work spent fortifying Africa's healthcare system. Why should we fortify Africa's healthcare system? We're called racist and colonialist and neocolonialist and interlopers and evil. The crap that comes out of the mouth of the people that are now whining about us turning off money, screw them. Screw them. Trump's global funding has had a major impact on monkeypox. They call it Mpox. It's not Mpox. It's monkeypox. Monkeypox, like it's Wuhan, just like it's Lassa fever, just like it's West Nile virus. It's monkeypox. Cholera, malaria, HIV/AIDS. Well, you can prevent cholera without any money from the U.S. Stop pissing and shitting in your drinking water. Wash your freaking hands with clean water. Boil your water. That's how you prevent cholera. That doesn't require any assistance from the United States. That just requires people to stop being stupid. How's the abrupt withdrawal of aid has affected? Well, Ethiopia. Trump slashed foreign assistance to Ethiopia at a time when parts of the country are battling multiple crises: conflict, displacement, climate change, food shortage, and disease. Ethiopia is Africa's largest recipient of U.S. foreign assistance with $1.5 billion in 2023. Yep. So $250 million went to critical interventions and medical supplies. Why? Ethiopia has money. It has tons of capital coming in from the Gulf states and from Turkey. Ethiopia has enough money to build the Grand Renaissance Dam that costs billions and billions of dollars. Why can't they fund $250 million in medical? Why are we funding it? Many of those affected by the cessation of U.S. foreign assistance are South Sudanese refugees living in Ethiopia's Gambela region, according to Doctors Without Borders. Why doesn't Doctors Without Borders pay for them? The group said the number of malaria patients visiting its facility, 1 in 7, doubled in July compared to the previous month. Well, stop leaving rubbish around, quit being lazy pigs, clean up after yourself, shut your windows. If you don't have windows, live under mosquito nets. If you don't have mosquito nets, then beg NGOs for them. They've got them. Before the funding freeze, health officials and nonprofits have been sounding the alarm on resurgent malaria infection rates for years. So they admit in this story they're blaming Trump and America, but they admit in the story that before the freeze, the malaria rates had already spiraled. They're already gone up precipitously. So what does the funding cut have to do with that? Nothing. Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, nearly half of U.S. foreign assistance in 2030 went to fight HIV/AIDS. Yep. The sudden collapse in U.S. funding has hamstrung the global response to HIV/AIDS in other parts of Africa. Well, I don't really care. Zimbabwe has been lying about America for years, saying that we sanctioned the country, which we haven't done. Lying about America, saying that the sanctions destroyed their economy. No, their theft, their pilferage, their murder, their illicit activities have destroyed their economy. And all the while, we've fed Zimbabweans so they wouldn't starve. Millions of Zimbabweans we've fed, and we've protected and provided antiretrovirals and other resources for 1 million Zimbabweans. And all we get is called names. You know, at some point, your generosity gets you spit in the face. You're stupid if you continue it. Somalia. Since the drawdown of U.S. foreign assistance at the start of the year, the militant al-Shabaab group has increased its foothold, retaking dozens of villages. Okay, so a militant campaign by al-Shabaab is a consequence of us not giving medical care to Somalis. No, it's not. That's just utter nonsense. That's nonsense. Tanzania. Tens of thousands of refugees fleeing violence in DRC and Burundi have made their way into western Tanzania's Nduta camp, where USAID cuts have disrupted mental health services for those who witnessed death, rape, torture, and other events. Where's the United Nations? Where's the United Nations? They want to crap all over us in the General Assembly. Why don't they fund this? Where's the United Nations? Where's the African Union? Why isn't the African Union providing mental health counseling for people who are survivors of the conflict in the eastern DRC? The African Union is busy sending troops to Somalia. The UN is busy sending troops to the DRC. Why aren't they providing these services? HSBC, a very old bank, has decided to buy the Hang Seng Bank. Of course, the Hang Seng Index is quite famous. $13.6 billion. HSBC plans to buy out minority investors in Hong Kong's Hang Seng Bank for $13.6 billion US dollars, paying a premium and halting its own share buybacks to acquire a lender hit hard by the local property market downturn. Yeah, because the communists are ruining the country. Yep, so HSBC making a purchase of the Hang Seng. The IMF issues a dire warning about tariffs, uncertainty in the global economy. Buckle up, she says. Yeah. Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said, buckle up. Uncertainty is the new normal and it's here to stay. She attempts to frighten the world. Before anyone heaves a sigh of relief, please hear this. Global resilience has not yet been fully tested, and there are now worrying signs that the test may come. Just look at the surging global demand for gold. The surge in demand for gold is an indication. It's not an outcome. She is misleading the public by saying indicators are results. The fact that the gold price is surging doesn't mean that the economy is collapsing. People are looking for a safe haven under uncertainty, but that uncertainty can be turned on its head just like that. If the Democrats capitulate and the government continues and funding is restored, then this nonsense will die down. Meanwhile, silver has hit a record price. Woo! All-time high for those who bought silver. I got a little bit of silver. Yep. I got a $1 coin. Silver rises to an all-time high, tracking gold's record-breaking rally. Silver soared to a record high on Wednesday, riding the coattails of gold's unprecedented rally. Spot silver is up 3.5% at $49.54 per ounce. Now, I will admit to one mistake. About 5 years ago, I considered buying a bunch of silver. It was much cheaper, down in the 20s, I think it was. But I thought that was too high. Well, that was a mistake. Well, the stakes are quite high, according to The Guardian and leftists who want to complain that the U.S. is going to eviscerate the Voting Rights Act. Well, it should be eviscerated because it's racist. It's unconstitutional, and it's been in play for decades. My entire life, this unconstitutional, racist piece of legislation has allowed the government to construct artificial districts to overrepresent Black Americans to the detriment of Native Americans, Hispanics, whites, and Asians. Court's decision in Louisiana versus Callis could limit voters from challenging racial discriminatory districts. U.S. Supreme Court set to hear a case this month that could gut the remains of the Voting Rights Act, effectively killing one of the crown jewels of the civil rights movement and the nation's most powerful statute to prevent discrimination in voting. No, it's not. It's not. See, that's a lie. Creating artificial districts that guarantee that majority district is Black is not a voting right. No one's vote is being denied. If Black Americans want to have a larger percentage of the vote, then they need to be a larger percentage of the country. But the fact that they're focused on Black Americans as a group instead of Americans is part of the problem here. Let's take a look at what they're complaining about. Okay? So here is the Voting Rights Act lawsuit that Louisiana is, that's why it's Supreme Court. So in 2022, District 2 was 61% Black. It included New Orleans and the areas with lots of Black folks. And it's largely geographically makes sense coming down the Mississippi River on the bounds of both sides of the river there. You see that? But in 2024, the district was redrawn to look like that. The people in the north in Shreveport have no relationship to the people down there. That's ridiculous. The dispute is a court is focused on a challenge by white voters to a majority Black district in Louisiana that stretches from Shreveport to Baton Rouge. The justice already heard oral argument in the case in March that focused on whether Louisiana Republicans had overly relied on race when they redo the district in response to Section 2 lawsuit by Black voters. The court did not reach a decision at the end of the court's term. This is ridiculous. This is what they do to create majority Black districts. Imagine that. Defending racism. That's what they're doing. Well, bipartisan measure to violate the War Powers Act and limit the president's legally mandated and authorized authority as the chief executive and the commander-in-chief of the military has failed in the Senate. Democrats call the Trump administration's lethal strikes on alleged Venezuelan drug traffickers unconstitutional. They're wrong, but were unable to persuade Republicans to vote in a restraining measure. In the past 2 months, the U.S. military has struck at least 4 boats in the Caribbean, killing 21 people. The administration claimed it was targeting narco-terrorists, and it is. It is. Senator Rand Paul, Republican Kentucky, criticized the strikes as extrajudicial killings. Well, he's right about that, but it's a war. Is it too much to ask to know the names of those we kill before we kill them? We know that evidence exists of their guilt, Rand Paul said Wednesday, calling the administration's argument madness. He and Republican turncoat Lisa Murkowski from the crime family of Murkowski in Alaska were the only ones who broke with their party in a 48-51 measure. John Fetterman voted against it, the Democrat from Pennsylvania. Otherwise, it would have been 49-50. Air traffic controllers, it's a problem. The government shutdown is affecting flight. Travelers are starting to cancel trips to avoid airports until U.S. lawmakers find a way to reopen the government, which may not open for several days or weeks. But this is odd. Air traffic controllers are essential personnel, so how is this affecting air travel? This is why Reagan fired them when they went on strike in 1981. They're essential employees. They continue to work. They continue to get paid, whether there's a budget or not. Republicans could gain 19 seats by removing that stupid ability to create fake districts that artificially give black voters more power than any other voter. This could lead to 19 additional Republican seats in the next House. Trust me, the Democrats will absolutely lose their mind if that's the case. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just Washington that can't get its act together. I ran last year for the state legislature here in Pennsylvania and did not win. A so-called Republican did win the seat, but the Republicans lost control of the House, or didn't regain it. As a consequence, we have no budget now since this summer. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is operating without a budget because of childish bureaucrats and officials in Harrisburg. Despite some increasingly sharp political barbs being thrown, Pennsylvania's 3-month late state budget showed few signs of being closer to completion. Republican-controlled state Senate passed a bill that would allow Treasury Secretary Stacey Garrity to issue budget impasse relief loans, which she announced last month at zero interest despite Democrats' objections that Garrity's plan likely violates the state constitution and state code. At the same time, Democratic majority House passed a $50.25 billion appropriations package, shaving $1.3 billion off the governor's original proposal. But here's the thing. Let's take a look at this very quickly, folks. Let me take a look at this. The numbers are escaping me now, but I did know them because I ran for office. So over the years. Here we go. Last 10 years. Okay. Well, total spending is beyond the budget, though. The general fund is what we're talking about. It's $44 billion. In 2019, it was $36 billion. Total state spending, including money from the federal government, in 2015 was $73.5 billion. Last year, it was $120 billion. It's grown by $45 billion, by 50%. Despite that, I don't see better roads. I don't see better state services. I don't see any better veteran services. Nothing more. That far exceeds inflation. 50% increase in state spending since 2015, since I moved here. Well, the Washington Post does an op-ed in which they admit the truth, but then they contort the truth to suit their needs. Jack Smith's lawfare and James Comey's arraignment are on pathetically weak charges. Well, no, James Comey is not on a pathetically weak charge. James Comey should be in prison for violating the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This contempt of Congress thing I don't care about. I want him in prison for violating the law. I had to follow the law as a counterintelligence agent. He had to follow it as a director of the Federal Bureau of Incompetence. And he lied to a FISA court. He lied. They failed to disclose that Carter Page was a government asset working for the CIA. which has a direct bearing on whether there would be surveillance on him or not and his trustworthiness. They used that fraudulent warrant as a predicate to spy on Michael Flynn and then fabricate a Russia collusion narrative, falsely claiming that Flynn had no right under the Logan Act to interact with the Russian ambassador before he became the national security advisor. That's simply not true. It was an incoming administration. They have every right to coordinate with foreign authorities in advance of coming in. He concluded no agreements. And then they used that to spy on a host of other Trump acolytes and Trump himself. And they continued to spy on him after he was president of the United States. This is the greatest scandal in the history of the Republic. And the Washington Compost chooses to twist it. The targeted centers that Grass revealed appears to be less invasive than Scott Perry's case. It's not a mystery why prosecutors wanted phone logs. Trump tried fruitlessly to convince lawmakers to vote against to recognize his election defeat. But Trump trying to convince people to vote against it is not a crime. There's no basis for a warrant there. No basis to spy on these members of Congress. Wow. Anyone surprised by the news that former counsel Jack Smith collected private phone numbers of 8 Republican senators as part of his investigation of President Trump was not paying attention to the prosecutor's hardball methods. Many Democrats cannot see how their legal regression against Trump during his 4 years out of power set the stage for a dangerous revenge tour. There's no revenge tour. These people committed crimes. They deserve to be prosecuted and imprisoned for their actions. Yep. That's the bottom line. Well, this shooting of a person in Chicago is interesting. The ICE agents shooting a woman who attempted to interfere with government operations. Body cam footage conflicts with the Department of Homeland Security account of the Chicago woman's shooting by Border Patrol. A woman who was shot multiple times by U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents did not ram them with her car and had her weapon stored in her purse. But unfortunately for these liars and for their attorney, video shows the woman crossing the line divider and dangerously endangering the safety of ICE agents in an SUV, while her friend pinned the ICE agents on the backside, both vehicles coming within inches of the ICE vehicle. While they didn't strike the vehicle, perhaps, they endangered the safety of the occupants of the vehicle and a federal operation. She is the architect of her own demise. Stupid people should wear signs. The Nobel Peace Prize. What are Trump's credentials and can he win? The Al Jazeera publication seeks to explain it, and they take issue with Trump ending 8 wars. Well, they have merit, and I would say there's value to it. But the responses from Priyanka Shankar are ticky-tacky, and I'll explain it. So, what are Trump's credentials? Okay. In September, Trump said he deserved to win the prize for the possibility of ending Israel's 2-year war. While U.S. weapons and country ironclad diplomatic support for Israel have been critical in allowing the war to continue, Trump is also widely believed to have pressured Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu more than his predecessor to end the fighting. Last week, he unveiled a 20-point plan. Now, with the announcement of ceasefire, the war is the closest it's been to conclusion. Then they go to she tries to quantify this by saying that qualified. Let's say the war between Iran and Israel in June ended with a ceasefire brokered by Trump. But the bout of fighting, which started with Israel striking Iranian nuclear facilities, killing scientists, and bombing residential neighborhoods, also included the U.S. as an active participant. Priyanka, you're factually incorrect. That war started when Iran fired hundreds of missiles into residential areas a year prior, in 2023. Attacking and murdering Israeli civilians without provocation. Iran started the war. Israel just waited a year to respond. Big difference there. In May, India and Pakistan waged an aerial war, bombing each other's bases. India said it hit terrorist bases in Pakistan, and Pakistan administered Kashmir, while Pakistan claimed India killed dozens of civilians. Ultimately, Trump announced a ceasefire after 4 days of fighting, but while Pakistan credits the U.S. president for halting the fighting, India denies it. Well, of course India denies it. Modi's pissed off at Trump because India is the biggest buyer of Russian sanctioned oil, and they're thumbing their nose in America. So, of course, Modi's going to lie. So that's not germane. Cambodia and Thailand saw 5 days hostility in August, and a truce began after phone calls not only from Trump, but also mediation from Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim and a delegation of Chinese negotiators. So far, only Cambodia has thanked Trump for his role. So because other people are ungrateful bastards, that doesn't mean Trump played a role. And it doesn't matter if other people were involved. Trump was involved. Peace is involved. Relations between Serbia and Kosovo have been tense since the early 2000s. The European Union and NATO have always been key mediators in the region. Kosovo and Serbia signed a deal in 2020 under Trump during his first term. While relations remain tense, the two have not been involved in full-blown war since Trump's return to power. Trump reduced the tensions and prevented a war. What are you equivocating for, Priyanka? Trump says he ended the war between Egypt and Ethiopia, but while the two nations have tense relations, especially over the dam, they have not been in any war. True, but everyone said they were on the verge of a war. Troops were preparing to attack. The Ethiopians were angry. They moved troops around. Trump reduced those tensions, so he prevented another war. Rwanda and the DRC signed a peace deal in June, brokered by Trump. The ceasefire is fragile and tensions between the two countries remain high, but the deal is holding. Okay, it is fragile. I said so at the time, but it's holding. And it doesn't matter. He negotiated a deal. And since June, it's been in place. June, July, August, September, at least 90 days of peace. What's the problem? In August, Trump oversaw a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which promised to end a simmering conflict that exploded in open war since 1991. Trump appeared confused about the countries he mediated. He also told his host he'd end a war between Azerbaijan and Albania. So he misspoke, and so that means that the war isn't over? Stupid people. Stupid people. I would be surprised if President Trump will be awarded this year's Peace Prize, as he has not yet made a substantial enough contribution to peace to win the prize, said Nina Granger, researcher or director of the Peace Institute of Oslo. What a shithead. What a shithead Nina Granger is. Not made a significant contribution. You scumbags gave Barack Obama the Nobel Peace Prize. For what? The man launched more wars than any president in modern history. Unbelievable. These stupid people should wear signs, man. They should wear signs. Be sure to hit the like button if you haven't done already, folks. Piece of cake. You just hit that like button.
That was easy.
There you go. See how easy that is? All right. Who else made half the effort? Nobody, Philip. Nobody. Amazes me how politicians think we have short memories like goldfish. Yep. Changing history of politicians' behest. Yep. Simulated lethal action rates. I have no idea what Daniel's talking about there. Surprised my power's still on, says Freya. And there's a super chat from Mad Max. Trump administration severe restrictions on the American refugee system prioritizes white South Africans. Oh, we have another. What is that? That's not even that's not even a publication. It's New Haven Independent. This is from Connecticut. It's a local paper in Connecticut. Integrated Refugee and Immigration Services has decided not to work with the federal government to help resettle refugees this year. Another racist organization. In prior years, the State Department has contracted with IRIS through its national affiliate. Last year, starting now after an overhaul of the U.S. refugee policy, IRIS has decided not to take on such a contract and focus instead on assisting refugees and immigrants who have already settled in Connecticut. Primary reason for the decision, said, was the federal executive order indicating an intent to allocating resettlement slots to white Afrikaners. They're racist. They're just racist. This is a nothing story. It's another scumbag refugee resettlement agency. And refugees will suffer as a consequence. So when the Afghans and the Congolese and the Yemenis come to this country, there will be no one to help them resettle because these scumbag racists are bigots. They take in 300,000 Ukrainians, but they won't take in a handful of South Africans because they're stupid. Thank you for the super chat, Mad Max, but that's a nothing burger. We all heard AI blackmailed someone in a test when threatening to shut it down. AI has now tried to assassinate the person who was going to shut it down. How can AI assassinate somebody? What, did they trigger an automatic weapon store somewhere? There's no buffering here. One of the reasons that the price of physical gold and silver has gone up is just for war. Yeah, exactly. Berto says, sorry, all gains by silver today currently down the drain. Went down today as quick as it went up. Okay, that's fine, Berto. I would love to see silver at $3.50 an ounce, and then I would buy a bunch of it. Trump wants to station ICE agents, polling stations, and midterms. Where are you getting this from? What's your source, Star Chaser? What is your source? Anil Samarji says the first person crying for Nobel Peace Prize shows how morally bankrupt he is. No, he just wants recognition for bringing peace to the world. It's unseemly, it's unsightly, but that doesn't make him morally bankrupt because he wants a peace prize. He deserves it. Yep. USA should stop giving hard-earned money to Africa. Yep. All these begging African countries never stop saying how they hate colonial racist America, but they want America's money. Exactly, Diana. Exactly. We're not suggesting they're spending the aid elsewhere. We are we? What's this? Okay. They want nothing to do with the West because they're colonizers and racist, yet they want money from the West. Exactly. If it's not given to them, we're racist. Leona, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's an assumption on your part. You're saying most USAID did not reach intended recipients. That's simply not true. I worked for over 2 decades in Africa, and I work with USAID programs every day, and I can tell you that the money went where it's supposed to go. Very little looting. Some of that money stayed in America because it's NGOs. The money was funneled to them, like Catholic Relief Services based in Baltimore. They made a ton of money off of our aid by providing services across Africa. But the money went where it's supposed to go. It isn't paid to governments, so it's not looted. Ian says I deserve an Oscar for my sympathy. Someone save America from being responsible for the world. Exactly. Oh, you guys can nominate me for an Oscar. Thank you, Pearl. If we had to boycott shops because of the racist employment policy, you wouldn't be able to shop. Exactly. There's nowhere to shop. They're all following the BE guidelines. So, top 200 map. We're still on the map. Who did Mkwanazi go to himself as last resort? The press. Yep. Philip says 11-year-old boy shot in the head last week, Thursday in Springs. Home invasion, died today. Oh, my God. See, the problem with that story, Philip, nothing taken, is that I have no confirmation of that. Someone's given me a number to reach out to a group that may have correct information. That's why I haven't run that story. Etienne Rousseau's 1-minute video about ANC complicit in blurring out the White Cross monument on Google Earth. I didn't see that. Had a truck driver with us in the shop. Told us in Haotang at the market they have huge diesel depot belonging to Muslims supplying diesel for next to nothing. Then you start dotting the dots. ANC has screwed up everything that was good in South Africa. Yep. A boycott Pick and Pay due to their racial employment. Well, you might as well boycott all of them. Sean Spence, thank you for the super chat. Walmart may bring some relief to struggling citizens in South Africa. Possibly, Pearl. Possibly. Why would Walmart want to associate itself with a criminal Marxist government? I have no idea. I have mixed feelings on it too. Yep. I don't know why. Trump have the right to enact the Insurrection Act against mayors and governors like Portland? Yes, he does have the right to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. He does. But there are certain conditions tied to it. And he can invoke it. He should have invoked it in the summer of 2020. The failure to do so has set a precedent that allows these idiots to act like fools. But there's no need to invoke the Insurrection Act to arrest Pritzker or Brandon Johnson. They're actively hindering federal law enforcement, and that's a criminal act. They're interfering with official acts. So they could be arrested now, but it's politically damaging. That's why they're not doing it. You don't need the Insurrection Act to deal with that. You need the Insurrection Act to deploy the National Guard or the federal forces to put down insurrection, like President Washington did in his term in office by getting on his horse, marching his horse to Carlisle Barracks here in Pennsylvania, just a few miles from my house, and then led the federal forces into western Pennsylvania to put down the Whiskey Rebellion. Yeah, so he doesn't need the Insurrection Act to arrest Brandon Johnson or Pritzker, but it's very politically damaging. That's why he hasn't done it. But he has every right, Werner Kruger, under the law. The person was in a controlled environment, air circulation, shut down his systems, attempt to preserve his... Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That explains it. Okay. Even overseas airlines will not have to be BBE compliant. I don't understand that. They have no authority over overseas. Are you saying they won't be allowed to land in South Africa? Arctic, please explain that. That doesn't make any sense. Are you saying that overseas airlines that operate in South Africa will be required to be BE compliant? So they're saying that we must give 60% or 51% of the equity of Delta to black people? Well, I own shares of Delta. They can just shove it up their rectum. They can't make me do that. Just because Trump doesn't play the false modesty game doesn't mean he doesn't deserve a Nobel Prize. Freya, that's well stated. Yeah, exactly. The world hates America until they need food. But it's not the world. It's politicians and the media. Not the world. Celebrities, politicians, the media. They're all just a bunch of scumbags. Average people love America. I've lived all over Africa, folks. Most Africans that I've met would kill for a chance to live in America. Love America. And most of them don't really understand what America's about, but they still want it. Yeah, it's the politicians, the media, and celebrities that are the ones that hate America. Jones said President Trump deserves a Nobel. Not sure if it's worth running around proving track record to hold peace talks and obtain results. I don't understand your point, Joan. You're saying it's not worthwhile to end the conflict in Gaza? Or are you saying he shouldn't self-promote? Thank you for the explanation, Daniel Whitfield, regarding the AI. Yes, Zimbabwe was destroyed under Mugabe. It's a shame because it had a good start early on. What did Chief Wolf say? Any company operating in South Africa needs to be compliant with BE. That's not true. There are Chinese companies that are exempt from that requirement. Chinese have been given industrial parks in Gauteng where only they can operate. They don't pay taxes. They've been given all kinds of stuff. The White Cross Monument is not blurred out on Google Earth. Yeah, who said it was? I didn't say it was. Del Marie grew up in Rhodesia. The Citizen is the only media that ran the story today on the confirmation. Yeah, a week after he was shot. Springs advertised the local paper tomorrow. Thank you, Alan. Chinese is not black. Under BE, they're considered black, but they're not black. So, the Citizen. Okay, let's see what story they ran. Excuse me. I don't see the story. Let me do a search. Nothing. 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 I see nothing in the Citizen. Nope, there's nothing here. Nothing I can find. Have a great evening. So cheers for now. Thanks for the news, says Joan. No, I simply mean it was President Trump. We know what he has accomplished. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. I wasn't clear. That's why I asked. Yes, Chinese are listed as black under BE, but they're not. But being listed for preferential treatment under BE doesn't mean you get it. Colors are listed as black, and so are Indians, but they don't get treated fairly under BE. A lot of my pilot friends are leaving, and some captains' contracts have not been renewed. Yep. Reported by Tech Central outlines $2.5 billion local investment, specifically mentions plans to work to equip vessels with Starlink. Okay. They can't fly. Need senior training skippers to verify them. Standards have dropped. Yeah, no, it's getting a little scary to get in the air in South Africa. Getting a little scary. So, yep. So, Arctic, did you answer my question? Or did you just ignore it? Or you didn't hear it? Oh, I can pay in the transportation fund. Yep. Okay, gotcha. Cool. All right. Springs Advertiser. Okay, well, that somebody said was going to be there tomorrow, so. Man, there it is. There's the story. All right. So, since I got a major news, or not major, but a newspaper reporting Chinese are black, so I'm part black now. Yeah, exactly, Fleshin. Exactly. Hey, Fleshin, how's it going, man? Okay, that's not it. There we go. Families shared the news of Waldo's passing and asked for privacy during this time. He's been life support at the Charlotte McKexa Hospital following shooting his family's home in Clydesdale Road. He sustained a gunshot wound to the head and was treated on the scene before being airlifted. His profound sadness, the family confirms 11-year-old Waldo has gained his angel wings. The family wishes to express heartfelt gratitude to everyone who supported him during his fight for life. Finally, family kindly requests privacy as they mourn the loss of their beloved boy. But it doesn't give any details. There's no details here. Still claims it's a house robbery. But I have people telling me anecdotally it wasn't a house robbery. They just walked up and shot the kid in the yard and walked away. But I can't confirm that. So I'm not doing a report on it until I get more information. Daily Telegraph reported British Airways pilot was kidnapped in South Africa and tortured for his bank card. That's an old story, Star Chaser, isn't it, from like 4 years ago? Alan, I do move things around. First off, both Pikachu and Bert the Bison are no longer behind me. And things move around on my shelf all the time. All the time. Well, the classification of Chinese as black shouldn't confuse you. It's just a question of hating white people. That's what it comes down to. Netwerk? Okay. All right, let me go there. But I don't have access to Netwerk 24. Let's go there. It's not there. So you guys tell me things are there, but they're not. There it is. Netwerk 24. It's not there. Over here it is. No, that's not it. It's not in the title. The story's not here, man. This is Netwerk. Do you see how news gets hidden from the international community? Oh, January 2024. Yeah, well, it was a couple years ago. The Rhodesian dollar was stronger than the UK pound. That was a long time ago. Yeah, Conrad, it's not there. It's not there. Let me go to news. Current. Actuel. It's not there either. You see how hard they make it? Well, it's not even listed here. So you say it's behind a paywall, but I pay for News 24. So Marola Media has a story about. Well, okay, thank you. Well, Marola, I would expect they would have it. Marola Media. Marola Media. I would expect it. Okay, I'm on Marola Media now. There it is, 11-year-old. Yep. 11-year Steph. Yep. Yeah, they have the story. Yep. I don't know how Chinese were classified under the apartheid era, if they were colored or what. If I recall correctly, during the apartheid government, Japanese shared white status while Chinese were given the same status. Yeah, I'm not sure. It really doesn't matter how they were done. What matters is now, so. Doesn't matter. Do you know that Indians aren't brown. Under law, Indians and Arabs are considered white in this country. Under federal law. Indians and Arabs are considered white. Yeah, I don't know how they're classified. I don't really care. It isn't germane to the topic today. Anyway, excuse me. It's going to be a long day for me. I've got the Veterans Organization tonight, and it's going to be painful. Painful. Oh, boy. Not looking forward to it. And then I've got election training coming up. I've got consulting at the War College. I've got so many things coming up here. I need another break. I haven't even got started on that stuff. Anyway. It is not here nor there, I guess. Yeah, exactly. It's not really important how they're classified. The hip is okay today, but pain comes back and forth. Are you talking about the shooting, Eugene DeVette? Yeah, that happened last week. Shot him in the head. But I get conflicting stories, and so that's why I didn't run with the story. So, yep. But the story isn't the death of a young white child and people ignoring it. That's not the story, folks. If there's a story, because that happens every day to South Africans. And if we focus on Waldo alone, then we neglect all the innocent children who are Indian, black, and colored who are murdered. That isn't the issue. The issue is not the media not covering it. The issue is, was in fact what the media initially reported true or not? Because I have anecdotal information that in fact there wasn't a house robbery, just like the murder that took place in Brits earlier this year wasn't a house robbery. It was domestic terrorism covered up by the police. So the question here is if they've covered this up because the victim is white. I don't know if it's true, but the accounts I've been given by more than one source, but they're not reliable sources because I don't know them, so I can't go with this. They could be reliable, but I don't know them, so I don't know the veracity of it. But the sources have told me that it was listed as a home invasion, but they came up to the yard, shot the kid in the head, and left, walked away. That's not a home invasion. So I need to know more information. You're very welcome, Andre, now. Okay, Connie loves pencils. Hey, where you been? In the Criminal Records Center, and we had to move all Chinese fingerprints to the black people sets. When? After 1994? All right, guys, thank you so much. Looking at the videos of war in Ukraine, it's terrible what they do with drones. Soldier craft is counting less. Yeah, exactly right. Soldier skills matter less and less. Drones will hunt you down. Yep, it's pretty scary. And I foresaw this a long time ago. I have worked with drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, since 1990. 1990. All right, guys, take care. Kathy, I have to go back and look for email from you because I know you sent me some more music. I haven't looked at it in a while. So, all right, guys, thanks, and have a good night, and we'll see you later on. I've got some videos I need to produce, but I've also got to do my judge work. I've got to prep for this evening, so I don't know if I'm going to get around to videos. And also got to get ready for tomorrow. I've got a Stormers broadcast tomorrow I got to cover. So, all right, that's going to do it for now, folks. You all take care, and we'll catch you later on. Thanks for being here. Be sure to hit the like button if you haven't done it. Get us up to 500. Just act cruelty. Well, Reddick, I believe that's the case, but I need more information before I make such a claim. You see, unlike News 24, The Independent Line, and The Daily Maverick, I take my reputation seriously, and I take my journalism seriously. All right, guys, thanks. Cheers.